What's up, guys? Shout out to my three followers. Welcome back to episode three, or my three listeners, I should say, whatever. So, today's podcast, we're just going to talk about all the market turmoil and everything that's going on right now. I'll give my opinion a little bit, and, we'll see if any other news pops up. I have my timeline here on my phone. I'll be glancing at any other news we could talk about. So if you're interested in this podcast, this episode, if it doesn't interest you, then you can stop listening now. But we're going to talk about the banking crisis and how that could affect our economy and which way we're headed. We'll talk a little bit about Russia and China and Ukraine and a little bit about that if we have time. So I'm going to try to stay consistent with this. Drop one of these every week. We'll see what day I pick to do it consistently. I'll let you guys know. So just to recap, guys, basically. What's going on in the banking sector is all of these banks that had excess cash. It's not necessarily bad loans, but Central Valley Community Bank and I keep saying Central Valley. That's where I'm from, bro. It's Silicon Valley Community Bank. Jesus Christ, man, get it together. But basically, what these guys did is they went out and they bought the safest asset possible, which were government bonds. And what had happened is they bought them for 10 years out, right? And they got them at 1.5%. All right, long story long. Obviously, you guys all know interest rates went up. So the value of that bond went down, and that wasn't necessarily a problem. Because when they park it at the Fed, the Fed looks at it like 1-to-1. So even if that bond is worth, let's say they bought it for 100 and it was worth 80, the Fed's still going to look at it like it's worth 100, because if you hold that bond to the maturity, you're going to get all your money back, your whatever you made or whatever you spent on the bond plus your interest. The problem is there was a shortfall because of interest rates going up so much and people pulling cash out. And, Silicon Valley Community Bank, got it, bitches, had to start selling these bonds at a loss. And you're going to see like a lot of, banks. Obviously, banks have losses, guys. Not surprise, surprise. Not everybody pays their loan payment, right? But it's usually not enough to sink a bank. And really, at the core of this problem today, it's not that the banks lent out a bunch of bad money or whatever. Right now, the banks are just being tested, and there is a panic, and that's why I do think this is going to blow over, man. It's just a panic, right? It's a liquidity crunch because. The reality is, guys, there's not enough capital in the world to pay off all the loans. All right, surprise, surprise, right? Like that's just how our system works. Our system, if there's $1 million in loans out there, the whole world had $1 million in loans. There's probably only about 150,000 actual dollars chasing it. And that's just how the system works. I don't want to get into exactly how and why and all that. Just trust me, that's how it works. And it's not a bad thing. It's not like, oh, it's a sham. It's just right now, the system we have, that's the way it's set up. And with that being said, you have these liquidity crunch moments, and we could go back and talk about right during COVID, we kind of all knew that this was going to be a problem when we printed 40% of the money supply, or the whole United States, as long as the United States been a country. In those last 2 or 3 years, we printed 40% of the money that was available. That was going to be a problem. That's why inflation is out of hand. I mean, doesn't take a mathematical genius to realize that, And to bring that down, the most dangerous problem, to bring that problem down, we had to jack up rates. And this is why every smart business guy I've ever followed, since the financial crisis has been saying, the Fed is pinning themselves in a corner. Because when you do these bailouts, when you do these, you do these things that you think are going to help everything short term, because the government is short term sighted. They're not long term sighted. We're not like China, right? Like, we have election cycles every 2 years and 4 years, and we in 6 years, I guess, senators, and we're just trying to appease. We're not really worried about the future. And every single time, even in your own life, any single time in your personal life, if you ever done a short fix to a problem, you just realize all you're doing is you're delaying the inevitable, and it usually becomes worse. There's an analogy that I love to use, And when I was a kid, I had to get over, like the struggle of things, right? Like I had a really hard time, and I guess it was like not survivor's guilt is the wrong word, but I felt guilty. Like, why was I born in America when other young Punjabi kids, they get left behind in Punjab and didn't have the same opportunity I did, right? And I was like, man, and it made me feel really bad. And I just, at one point in time, you just realize like everyone struggles different, and it doesn't mean that anyone struggles less or more. It's just like pain is a part of life. We have to go through it. And trust me, I'm going to get to the point to the banking. Just follow me in my logic. One of the best analogies or stories I love to tell, about struggle and succeeding is, how a, butterfly is made, and it goes into the cocoon, and, you can see the butterfly out from the caterpillar trying to get out of the cocoon is such a small little hole, right? And from us as humans and being empathetic and being compassionate, we look at that and we say, oh my God, we just don't want this, because we know it's a beautiful creature to suffer. We just want to go and make that hole just a little bit bigger, get like a little thumbtack, make it a little bit bigger, help them get out, help them, spread their wings. But in nature, nature, nurture, whatever. In nature, you don't realize that if we go there and make that hole bigger, that butterfly is never going to be able to fly, because the butterfly has to get through that small hole, because it's literally forcing its bones to shape in a way that it could actually fly. And so if we go and assist it, we're not actually helping it, we're hurting it. It will just go, poor fella, never going to be able to fly. And a lot of the time, you can apply that same logic to a lot of times in our life. Like, we kind of all have to go through our own struggle to get to where we ultimately want to get to and become the person we want to become and achieve the things we want to achieve. We have to go through it. And a lot of the times in life, like, you look at people that are irresponsible or people that they just don't move with a pep in their step. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like real killers. They don't have struggle. They don't have struggle. And so what does all this mean to the banking system? Well, when the federal government, much like, us humans trying to help that butterfly, just comes in and we give these quick fixes and we don't let any struggle happen. And struggle is a form of accountability too, right? You when you're struggling through something, you're holding yourself accountable to go through whatever it is that you're facing, so you become better on the other end. But when the government continually and habitually steps in to save the day, it usually makes it worse down the road. So that Reagan, was that famous Reagan line, like, the two scariest things you ever hear is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And I was like, yeah, but we are in the position we are in because of policy decisions. And it's not just the Federal Reserve, right? Like, the Federal Reserve, they're just trying to do their job, right? Like, they're at the will and the direction of Congress, of the president, of other powers to be. And so I don't really blame one, there's no way that you could blame one person or one thing. This is a systematic problem. We've been relying on cheap debt for too long. And, it's not that hard to really understand. If you look at something like Bitcoin, why is it going to succeed? In my opinion, it's because there's only 21 million of it, right? Why did the gold standard work? It worked because it held people accountable. It was real, right? Like, if our country went into a deficit with China because they're making all of our cheap stuff, we would have had to send our gold to them. Then we realized, like, oh shit, guys, we got to get our shit together. We can't just spend like willy nilly. When you take those things away that hold governments accountable, that hold people accountable, you take away those barriers, you take away that struggle of having to acquire gold to become whole, you have what we have now, where everything is free and everything is fun. And when these problems come, they come hard, and there's a couple of quotes, like that ring in my head, it's like, you could go decades with peace and it takes a few weeks that feel like decades. And that's kind of what we're going through right now, but on the fundamental level, if you look at businesses or rental properties or whatever independently, you realize Apple might be cut in half, but that doesn't mean they're going to do half the business next year that they did last year, right? So some of these things are oversold. And the reason why I think we're going to be okay is because it's not like that it's isolated. There's probably a lot of other banks that are under, but it's just you had this period of crazy selling or of crazy money, and everyone took out big bets, and now they're having to pay the price. But I think the Fed's going to come in and save the day, and I think things are going to be okay. And the reason why is, and this is a great struggling lesson for all of us young investors here, because it's like you got to be able to trust that you know what you're really doing. And when you're looking at an asset, like things in life, there is real in life. There is like true honest investing, like value investing or whatever you want to call it. The actual value has to be derived from something that is solid, something that is foundational. And if you look at rental properties, for example, it's the easiest asset class to evaluate because the value is driven from the rents. You can't BS a good real estate investor because they're not going to care about anything, your location and all that. Like, yeah, get that shit out of my face. Someone like me, I'm going to be like, so what's the rent a month? What's the rent going to be, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, all the way 10 years out? I'm like, okay, that's great. We're going to add all that up, all the total rents that are going to be collected over the next decade, and we're going to discount that to today's dollars. And we're going to say, that's what I'm going to pay. And if you're going to play ball with me, we'll play ball. If you're not, then I'm on to the next one. Because there will be a deal that lines up with exactly what I want, which is true value, right? And you can look at every single business and really determine that, right? A gas station, a plumbing business, you can look at Apple, you can look at Google, you can literally look at companies that have been around for at least 5 years, right? This is the Ben Graham, Warren Buffett way of investing, and say, okay, what did this company do the last 5 years? And what do we think logically you could do for the next 5 years or the past 10 years, next 10 years? You discount that to today's dollars, and then you get your number. And what do you mean by discount? Like, people might be listening and saying like, it's not a, what is that? What does that mean? It means like that, is what the safety is, right? So if you had a rental unit, I always do the 10-10 multiple, right? Whatever the rent is times 10 months, and I leave 2 months out, property taxes, insurance. If you're really conservative, you do 9 months because you just factor in your capex and your vacancy. But if you're just ballparking, it's easy to go at 10-10-10 because you're just multiplying in tens is just adding zeros, right? So today's current rent times 10 months times 10 years, whatever that number is. So if it was $1,000 that you're collecting today, 10 months is 10,000 times 10 is 100 grand. Excuse me. I know you could pay 100 grand for it. You'll probably be okay. But then I like to apply a discount saying I'm still incurring a lot of risk. There's going to be rehab involved. There's going to be evictions involved. There's going to be, who knows, crazy stuff that happens. And my discount window is usually anywhere from 10 to 20%, depending on the deal, the location, all those other things factor in, right? So I know it's probably worth around 100 based on my 10-10-10. And I discount that and I come up with a number depending on the area. If it's in a very good area, I might only discount it 10% and say, okay, it's now worth 90 grand. I'll pay 90 for it today. And I know I'm safe because along the way, for real estate at least, I didn't add any rent hikes, did I? No, because I said 10 months, 10 years. That's what it's worth today. I want to discount from that number to do the deal. I know rent bumps are going to happen. You know what I mean? I know that the debt is going to be paid down and the property is going to go up and the equity and all that. All that shit doesn't matter, right? Our fundamental basis is what the hell does this thing make today? What do we think realistically it could make for the next 10 years, right? And it's really realistic and logical to think if this person has paid for the last 2 years $1,000 a month, that they're able to pay the next 10 years $1,000 a month, right? So that's how you value things, in my opinion. If you want to be solid and a real investor, that's how you do it, right? That's why Bitcoin and stuff is hard to value, really, because it's like, what are you earning? Now, once products and services are launched to it and you could borrow and there's an interest rate and it's been around long enough that it has a solid track record, then you could, project what it's going to do over the next 10 years in that revenue. Then you could come down to today and say that's what it's worth. That's when you're going to see a lot of more institutional investors. It's still going to take time to do that because otherwise Bitcoin's all speculative because it's not selling anything. It's not making anything. It's just worth what the next person's willing to pay for you, right? That's how some people view it. And other people say, whoa, you're valuing it completely wrong because you're going to have whatever the supply of money is. That's what the world currencies, if all those transactions come onto Bitcoin, that's going to be the value of it. You discount that to today's dollars, what would that dollar amount be? And that's what I'm trying to say. So long-winded response here, but it's like you got to understand the fundamental basis of things. And if you understand that, you're not going to be scared. And if you're not scared, you're going to look at opportunities right now as a perfect time to buy. But if you're scared and you're buying into the panic, like, oh my God, the banks are failing. Honey, the banks are failing. Let's pull our cash out and go to JP Morgan. And then, you're like, for what? JP Morgan's giving you 0%. They're taking your money and parking it at the Fed, and they're getting paid for 4.75 or whatever the hell it's at right now. You know what I mean? It's the biggest scam that they got going is just because they got the institutional name. But that's just how money's working, man. So what is my opinions? This is completely opinion. I think that, in the short term, there'll be a little bit of pain. Definitely, there's no way avoiding it. Tomorrow's a pretty big day. We'll see what the Fed hike. I think they are going to hike 25 basis points. But I think by the summer, they're going to realize, like, oh, shit, we probably went too fast. And they'll cut and it'll come back to normal. And then we'll bounce back and America will go on, man. There's just too many positivities in America for me not to continue to believe in America until it gives me 100% reason why. And when will that day come? That day might come. That date might come. And the main reason why that day will come is the day that America no longer respects property rights. And that's when I'll turn around left and right and I'll say, all right, it's about time to start offloading the yield portfolio and we're going to figure out where else we're going to be able to park this money. But until then, my bets are going to continue to be on America. And I'm just going to sit back and whenever I find a good deal that I am happy with, that I know I could get a consistent return from, I'm going to pull the trigger. Because you're talking about the rental unit example, right? If I got that at 80K today and I knew it was still going to rent for $1,000 a month for the next 10 years, why wouldn't you buy it? It's like, why wouldn't you buy that? It doesn't, who cares if the sky's falling? Like, if the sky's falling for you, that means the sky's going to fall for everybody, right? So we're all going to be in the same boat together. And that fear is what really stops people from taking a leap. And that doesn't mean go drain your whole bank account right now and just go buy stocks or go. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, if you've been beating around the fence, you've been working a deal, you shouldn't let, things that you can't control, control your actions, right? You got to make what you believe is the best decision for you. And like I said, I think there's going to be a little bit of pain because if I'm correct, I think on the 31st, all banks have to report their balance sheet. So we kind of see if they're under, if they're not. But that doesn't mean we're going to have a catastrophic event. We're literally days away from the Treasury. I think the Treasury today came out and said it's going to backstop, but we need more insurances from the government. And then all they got to do is raise the FDIC insurance to $1 million. And then it doesn't really even matter because the majority of Americans don't have that much money. I think the average bank account is like under 40K. So we're really just protecting the rich and the government loves to do that. So those things will settle out. Those things will be okay. Our banking system is healthy. It's just, when you have these bank runs and you have a lot of banks, they need the liquidity there. And when they are forced to sell their assets for liquidity, that's the problem we're at right now. And there's a few things that we can do in our financial plumbing system to make sure bank runs stop. And I think we will do it. And with that being said, I think we're going to be okay. And I think by the end of the summer, you'll see a rate cut. I didn't think a rate cut was going to happen because I didn't think things were going to break this fast. And it really would have still been okay. It's just that people started moving money that caused the bank runs that started everything, right? Outside of that, I think we're going to be okay. It's just a short-term blimp. I don't think this is going to be a '08 where we're going to have, houses that are going to go under or things like that. And the reason why is because majority of the homes are fixed on 30-year mortgages, bro. People got great payments. And even if they go on unemployment and the government prints more money, they're going to be able to make their house payment. So majority of houses are not going to go under. The commercial properties might be a little bit tough, especially if you're coming up on a balloon payment on your arm there, because it might get, the payment's going to get adjusted, and maybe your lender doesn't have the appetite to hold your loan anymore. So you're going to have to scramble and figure out where the capital is going to go or where you're going to obtain the capital. But I think that in due time, all that's going to work out. I don't think it's going to be something like where you're going to where you're going to be stuck or you're going to be forced to sell your properties, for 30% discount. Lending is still happening even up until this moment. Like, I mean, I was literally on Twitter and I saw a thread that somebody said they were nervous, but First Republic that was going under still closed the loan. And then today, or the last 2 days, everything that's been going on with them, they're being bought, but they still have the capital to close the loan. So I think this thing is a little bit overblown. Obviously, it's worrisome when you see turmoil in the market, but it's directly related to the rapid increase of rates, and this is like a pendulum, right? You go to zero rates, crazy stuff's going to happen, and then all of a sudden you have all these people take this debt on at zero, and you jack it up to 4%. I mean, that is just that's crazy. And I get it though. You're trying to combat inflation. You were trying to break things. You're trying to slow things down. Um, but this is why it's a double-edged sword, and to talk all the way, bring this all back home, all the way back. It was like, why bail us out in the first place? Why take that headache? And when you release quantitative easing, that's what the Federal Reserve was doing, buying those assets, going from 900 billion to 9 trillion, right? And then you continue to add, to the inflation cycle. This is why it's a double-edged sword, because if you cut rates too much again, economy will go and it'll start running hot again, and inflation will go out of control, and then you're going to have people with pitchforks. You continue to jack up these rates, you might get inflation under control, but now you're going to have millions of people, wiped out of work, and mad at you anyway. So it's like, what do you do? And is it possible that we have a decent outcome? I think a decent outcome's out the window, because a lot of people have already been affected by this in one way or another. And we haven't, fully felt the effects of it. So it's too void to, I would argue that the hard landing thing is out the window. Now you're just trying to figure out, is this going to be a tough landing, or a soft landing goes out the window? Is it going to be a hard landing, like, we skated by, or is the damn plane just about to blow up? You know what I mean? Like, that's, like I said, I don't think that will happen. I just feel like there is still a lot of liquidity in the system. There is a lot of people still sitting with a lot of cash that when they see deals, they will deploy. But this was a long and overdue cycle. We were headed on this cycle end of 19 or beginning of 19, like in that time frame, and then we were kind of slowly easing into a recession, and it was just going to be one of those, weird recessions where some zombie companies were going to blow up no matter what. You know what I'm talking about, right? Bed Bath & Beyond, GameStop, Sears, companies that probably shouldn't have, that just barely survived, right? And by now we probably would have been getting out of it. But with dropping rates to zero, COVID happening and everything, and then going, the economy blowing up over those 2 years, it was like the junkie getting his last high before going to rehab and realizing, like, oh shit, we really messed up, That's what I could describe it as. And then for what it means for us is like, well, if we have cash, we're just going to hang out. We're going to look for the best opportunities we possibly can. And we're not going to be scared. Why are we going to be scared? Because we're going to realize whatever it is that we're buying, it has that fundamental understanding, that fundamental principle. And we understand the business. We understand why we're buying it. And we're happy because we know what we think it could do for the next 10 years. We got it at a discount today. So we know we're going to be okay. We know we're not going to be millionaires overnight. We're willing to work hard, hold it out. That's why in the long term, I think as investors, will be okay. The negative side to this could be a small bank. If you had if you owned a burger restaurant, you had a small chain and you couldn't make payroll now because your local bank shut down, you might be hurting and your employees might be affected, but even you will be okay because America's pretty resilient. We'll find another banker. We'll figure this thing out. That's the short-term pain. And that's the negative side of it, right? Like all these businesses not being able to get help or people not being able to get loan funded and the economy slows down. And that's what kills inflation, is because demand automatically dries up, right? But then the positive side of it is, banks get better regulation and only gives money, and banks only start lending money to projects that absolutely make sense. Capital is better allocated, and the rates stay a little bit high or high enough that the regular people like me and you could actually earn a little bit of money from saving and not lose it, right? And that's how we're going to protect pension funds as well, because a lot of this fixed income stuff, it relies on these sturdy, decent interest rates. Like, I mean, look, 5% is not a whole lot of interest to pay for any type of business or real estate deal or whatever you're doing. It's really not. But 5% invested, compounded over the course of 60, 70 years turns into a lot of money. And in order for these pensions to work, these health insurance companies and these, well, not really health insurance, I take that back. I meant to say insurance companies to work, we need those higher rates. We can't have rates below 3% or 2%. It's just mathematically going to be tough, or else we're going to turn into Japan. And what does Japan do? Japan just kept printing. And it is nowhere, Japan is nowhere near affordable for the regular person. Like, the gap between rich and poor is extremely high, just like it is here, but it's going to get wider. If we go down to 3%, guys like me will never have an opportunity to sniff a good real estate deal, no matter how much capital I raise, because it's going to be too competitive, and the regular person that's coming up that wants to even own a few rentals, it's going to be so hard because their regular life is going to get so expensive, right? And yeah, those are the problems, man. Those are the things that are going to affect me and you, and I'm sure that's exactly what you guys are worried about, just like I am. Is like, what's up with our future? How are we going to navigate this thing? And it's okay to be fearful, but just remember, I wouldn't bet against America. Until they give us a reason not to. And I think that, I'm running in circles now, so we'll wrap this one up. Like, I think we'll be okay. I'm trying to calm people down, because it's very easy for me to come up here and be like, sell everything, it's all gonna go to hell, and we're all gonna, but I'm smart enough to realize, like, dog shit gonna be all right, man. We're gonna be all right, man. What are we tripping about, bro? If we're buying stuff that makes sense, we're gonna be all right. We'll pick up a little here, we'll pick up a little there. I mean, I wouldn't blow my load on one thing, if this is a passive investment for you, or if this is this is a little bit of extra cash you got, and you go in and you buy a little bit of stocks, it's not going to kill you. You're going to be okay. And to wrap this thing up, let's talk about my favorite topic, Ukraine. And I'm just saying this because, the world over here, our country's on fire, and, you got the East Palestine thing that happened a few weeks ago with the trains, and now you got the bank runs, and, our current leadership is just over here still focused on Ukraine and sending money over. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, man, how much more out of touch can you be, anyways, to me, this is my opinion. This is not facts. So if you want to stop listening to this portion, I totally understand. This is just going to be me giving my opinion. Okay. Like, you say whatever you want, but I gave you a warning. It's clear as day, bro. America wants to prolong this war. We have no interest in stopping it. And, we have our interests in line, because if we could take down Russia, then woohoo, we give them some good old American freedom. And then we can just focus our efforts on China. And I think China's smart enough to realize that. They're like, just as much as Russia needs Ukraine as a buffer from America, China kind of needs Russia as a buffer from America as well. So it's in their best interest to, stop that war, let Russia and Ukraine save face, keep those buffers in place. Let's just keep business going as it's going. We're all eating, right? That's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. And, as you guys know, Russia, Xi and Putin met, and, they want, Zelensky invites China to discuss peace after no breakthrough in Xi Putin meeting. That's the article that came out right now. And it's like, I get it. At this point, everyone's just trying to save face and put an end to this thing, because it's impacting them. It's impacting everybody. It's happens in a global economy, dog. We all got in bed with each other. One of us gets, an STD or something. We all getting it, baby. That's the problem. You know what I mean? That's why you just, stick in your own bed. You just, or you pick your partners wisely. But we didn't do that, and now we're suffering the consequences, just like everybody else is. And I could see why Zelensky's like, okay, we fought hard. I got my bag secured. We could draw this line out, and Putin will probably feel good for the next decade or however long he's going to live, and this thing could stop. And America did not want to bridge that gap. We have our own interests. But I think China does want to bridge that gap. And if China does bridge it, if China does bring peace to Russia and Ukraine, what does that do for China? How's the world going to view them? And the thoughts I'm thinking, like, do we really trust China? There's a thing about credibility. It means something. It means something. It really does. And my question is, or not my question, but my thought process is like, no, I really don't give a shit. I'm sorry, but I'm not dealing in Ukrainian dollars. I'm not going to be dealing in the ruble, whatever you want to say for Russian dollars. I don't care about China dollars. I don't care about Indian rupees. I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I still want the American dollar because I trust America does have its freedom of speech. It does have a just court system for property right protection, and yeah, and I know those other countries do not. I mean, trust me when I tell you, it is impossible to trust a country like India if you're going to go to buy land or get rid of it. If somebody's not going to, my Indian listeners, you know what up. You know what up. And for people that don't know, just Google it. If you don't want to take my word for it, do your own research. But other countries are not as friendly to do business, and they won't protect you like America will. So, yeah, I don't really give a shit. I just wanted to stop giving our taxpayer money to Ukraine because I really don't give a damn about what Russia does or what China does. I mean, just stay the hell away from us. Keep your nukes away from us. Y'all want to fight each other, like whatever. We're going to win in the long run, not by forcing freedom down people's throats. We're going to win because we have the better product. It's really that simple. America is the better, superior product. Everybody else is fucking around on them freaking Androids. And if you're an Android user, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. You got to switch over. I mean, I don't, Apple, it's not about the company. It's like the product is better. I'm sorry. I don't know what to say. The product is better, man. The product is better. And so then if the product's better, you're going to win. And the American product of what it was founded upon, we could have these arguments about that ain't America now. And I'll be like, Jesus Christ, man. You know what the fuck I'm talking about, dog. I'm talking about us having the right to be able to say what we want, be able to follow our religious beliefs, speak our mind, definitely be able to hold guns. That's a plus. But that, on top of our property rights, on top of our actual laws, and it does have low corruption here, very low corruption on a comparative scale. Once again, if you're just an American listening to this, go out and travel so you know what the you're talking about. Go to India, see how many police officers there take bribes, and the next time you get pulled over, offer a bribe to the police officer here and see what happens. There's no need to argue that. It's just the truth. The corruption here is low. It is there. I'm not denying it's there. There's going to be corruption everywhere. There's like small time city corruption and backdoor deals and all that bullshit. But I'm talking about the real corruption that actually affects me and you right now every single day. That doesn't happen. It doesn't. You could get pulled over by a cop, and the cop's either going to give you a ticket or they're going to let you go. And it doesn't matter who you are, what you wear, whatever, you get treated the same. And you're not going to get that in these other countries. Not nowhere close. You want to talk about police brutality? You want to talk about just them beating ass? That happens in other nations still. You might just get an ass whooping and then you get to go home. All those things, American product is better. The product of America is better. Now you might say, oh, they're pushing out all this LGBTQ or they're exporting this and they export horrible. You could say whatever the hell you want, but the fact that you're able to say it, the fact that you're able to have an opinion, the fact that you're able to disagree with what we're doing, that's the difference. That's what I mean when I mean America's the better product. And because of that, we're going to succeed because people are still going to want to come here. They still do want to come here, bro. And I don't think that's going to change in our lifetime. I don't think so. I really don't. And I am a betting man, and I'm betting on America, right? So when I look at stuff like this, it's like, Let them do what they want, bro. Like, we're already big dogs. You know what I mean? If they mess with us, we'll slap them. And if not, it's just like, if they want to do their own little, yell at each other, they want to fight each other or whatever, it's like, let them, bro. Let them figure it out. Like, why does it, we don't need to get involved in that. We do have enough issues at home. And the people in those nations, if we stopped dropping bombs on their foreheads, maybe they would be like, wow, America is the place to be. But if you're, let's see, you're born in 2003. So let's say you were 6. So you're born in 1997, right? And it's 20, well, it's crazy. It's almost been 20 years. So it'll be 23 years since the, Afghanistan war. So you'll be like 29, you'd be 30ish, right? And if all you remember is an American plane going over your house, dropping a bomb and killing your family, which that has happened, what do you think of America? But if they would have let Saddam Hussein do his thing, I mean, there was still going to be torture. There's still going to be killings and all this shit. It happened under him. It's happening now. All that happens in America as well. So don't give me that shit. But then if you saw America and we're living free and we're exporting movies and we're doing all this stuff and, we got all this, cool things and we never dropped a bomb on your forehead, you're probably going to think, damn, I want to buy some of America, right? But now that you're here, or you're that 23-year-old now or 29-year-old, whatever the age was, and you remember that bomb dropping and killing your family, and you see the culture and the export, you see all that still, what do you think of America? Because I would think, fuck America. And America wanted to get involved. And I get it. You get involved right there. Your number one enemy is Iran. You don't want them to get weapons. You got, friends with Israel. You're right there in the Middle East. You get another country on your side. Totally get it why we did it. But that's the problem. Is sometimes you know, we forget that government is just a bunch of humans. And we forget that humans sometimes are flawed very, very much. Because you're under the impression, or they're under the impression of the ends will justify the means. And anytime you have to stoop to that level, or you have a train of thought that says that, it means you probably already went too far or you're about to go too far. Don't do it. Don't do it. It doesn't. The ends do not justify the means. They hardly ever do. They hardly ever do justify the means. A lot of people think that China will be a superpower and it'll be able to dominate, and because it has those African countries trapped because it debt trapped them, and then they're gonna flex and whatever. But people want to be free, man. People want to be free, and the Chinese people, when they come here, when they send their students and they're in our free schools and they live our free life, and they go back and they take roles of government, they're going to want to buy America. They're not going to want to buy what their government is selling them. And eventually China will fall under its own accord. Just like a lot of people think America's falling under its own accord, but it's just, my whole thing about the culture wars is it's good. It's good to go forward a little too much, then come back. Not too much, but come back, rehone, and then go forward, because you do got to keep pushing things forward. That's what progressives usually do, but they went a little bit too crazy in certain things, in my opinion. But things change in a positive direction, and then yeah, that's my point. Is I feel like America still is on a positive direction. It looks negative with all these things. We could use that money instead of Ukraine. We could use it here, continue to make us better, make us good, make our product even more better, and it will be desirable to our enemies. Because we think right now the ends justify the means. Once again, we think going over to Ukraine, knocking out Russia, will justify us, not ever having to deal with Russia. Then we could take over China. What we don't realize is, how would the Russian people feel about that? How would we are just telling them it's going to be freedom, but they're going to be able to do whatever. We're not there. We're going to pack up and go home, So are they going to want to buy America? I'd probably not. I want to figure shit out for myself, and we should empower them to figure it out for themselves. But we shouldn't give them weapons and go in there and also prolong wars. It's one thing if you give them a little bit of weapons to defend themselves, like, okay, I was okay with that. But then it was like, this is defend yourselves. We get it. Russia, stop it. But immediately we should have went to the peace table and we didn't. Because, we think our ends justify, the means, and they don't. But the overall thing is, no, I don't think China, I don't think India, I don't think any other nation in the world can be a superpower above America, for the least of the next. Now I'm going to say it for until they mirror America. And if China came out, added a Bill of Rights, put in a constitution, had a fair system like we do, fair enough. Once again, go to another country, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want none of that. You think America's fair? America ain't fair. It's for this. Compared to other countries, you're in heaven. You don't believe me? Go do some research. Look at how other countries operate. Trust me, we are vastly superior. Vastly superior. But until another country buys America or mirrors us, they can't beat us. Because this is how God intended us to be, is free, be able to work things out, be able to push things forward, actually exercise our free will. Until that happens, no other country can come even remotely close. Not to mention, bro, you look at the rivers that are here in this country, the geographical outlay of the country, the production that hasn't even been tapped in this country. We're good. America's good. So that's why I'm like, when these world affair things, I think more of about America first, because my political doctrine would essentially be sell America through positivity, not intimidation and war. And that's why I'm so pissed about these things, because that money can be used for our citizens, would only make us better, only make our other citizens in other countries look at us in a positive light and say, damn, they're doing well. Damn, they got their homeless problem freaking figured out. Not, damn, they're dropping a bomb on my forehead again. It's going to be a fun week, guys. It's going to be a fun week. Well, I hope this was entertaining or you guys somewhat liked it. Appreciate you listening. If you're listening to this far, you're a freaking real one. Share this with a friend or a family member, man. Help me grow the pod or the page. You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter. Take care, guys. It stopped.